Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, RRO Holds. What are they and how can we remove them? We are very excited to have all of you joining us today. My name is Christine Self with Parent and Family Relations, and joining me today are Zach Manning from Orientation Services, Crystal Regalado from the Office of the Registrar, Pat McConnell from the Academic Testing Center, Ashley Ross from TSI Advising, and Amanda Garcia from Student Health Services. This webinar is part of our Parent and Family Webinar Series, where we share information on topics of interest to Red Raider families. We hope this webinar will help you support your new Red Raider as they prepare for Red Raider orientation this summer and take all the steps they need to ensure a smooth advising and class registration process. We plan to keep the webinar to about 30 minutes or so. If there's time at the end, we'll open it up for questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. We are recording this session and posting it to our website so that you'll be able to review it again later or share with others, including your student. I'll also email the recording link to the email that you used when you registered for the webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with Zach Manning, who will talk a little bit about orientation and what RR holds are.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine, and thank you all for joining us today. I know some of your students have already been accepted to Texas Tech University, and that's awesome. And some of you have not yet been accepted, and we'll just wait for that time to come. But as we talk through today, I want to talk a little bit about Red Raider orientation. For those of you who have not yet registered your student for orientation, y'all have homework. Well, actually, your student has homework. So today they need to reserve their spot. I know that they might still be looking at other institutions, and that's fine. What we need to do is get them in an orientation spot because the student fee is added to the fall tuition fees. They won't pay anything up front, but reserve their spot. We would hate for them to wait until March or April to decide to come to Texas Tech because at that point, their options for orientation are much more limited. So go ahead and reserve their spot today. And if they decide to go elsewhere, we'll simply withdraw their application with no penalty. We can always add guests at a later date. So have your student, if they haven't yet registered for orientation, do that today. Another great tool is our admitted student task list. So make sure they're utilizing that to know everything they need to do prior to enrolling for classes at Red Raider orientation. So the important thing about orientation is that is where your student will register for classes. They'll meet with their academic advisor and register. But there are a few things that might keep them from registering, and those are the holds, and that's why we want to talk to you all about those today. They are a little bit all over the place, and you might not know why or how they're placed. So that's what we're going to talk about. And some of those are mandated information. So TSI, some of y'all might have heard about TSI. That is our Texas Success Initiative. And we're going to talk about how your student can check to see if they're compliant. And if they aren't, what steps they need to take. Another information that you'll hear about from Amanda Garcia here shortly are immunizations. And those are, again, just like TSI, this is a state mandated necessity that we need your student to turn in prior to enrolling for courses. And then finally are their orientation modules. Now, this is something you probably haven't heard much about. This includes various amounts of required information as well as information specifically about Texas Tech. The modules for your students are going to open up on May 1st. So I don't want you to think that you're behind on any of that. We have plenty of time to get it done, but we need to start moving on that. So on May 1st, your student will receive an email if they are registered for orientation telling them to complete their modules. Those only take 60 to 90 minutes to complete, so we'll do that. The last thing, which is Texas Tech policy, is housing. So if your student is required to live on campus, they need to go about reserve that housing spot as soon as possible. Those spaces are filling up too, so definitely encourage your student to do that as soon as possible. So that's a little bit about the holds. And as we move into that, we're going to talk a little bit about TSI compliance. So your student, there will be three different options. They can be compliant, they can need testing, or they can need advising. One of the things that comes up with TSI compliance is the fact that your student might have applied as test optional. Now that is only for admissions. If they need to be compliant with their scores, they need to submit scores in so that we can check for their compliance. So if your student was accepted test optional, we need to make sure we get test scores in to make sure they're compliant for TSI. I know TSI is kind of a tricky thing, so we're going to hand it off to the experts, and I'm going to hand off the mic to Crystal Regalado, who oversees our TSI compliance. Thanks, Crystal.
Thanks, Zach. So as you guys have been hearing about, we do have the admissions optional policy. But before we start getting into that, I just want to remind everyone that TSI compliance, it is a state mandate. So it is required prior to course registration for any courses. The state set this up so that we can ensure that students are academically prepared to be successful in their college level courses. So we focus on 3 main areas. That's reading, writing, and math. We want to just make sure that they have a strong background before going into those degree specific and GPA and academic standing courses that are going to affect their whole academic career. So students that were admitted as test optional. This is a great program for students. They have that assured admittance. It does not mean that TSI compliance doesn't apply to your student. So those students that have already taken their ACT, SAT tests and decided not to submit them to be admitted, go ahead and send those test scores into us. They won't affect your student's admission at all, but we could potentially use them to exempt your student from some of their TSI testing. So we are able to cherry pick. If your student did great in math, but not so great in reading and writing, we can use that SAT score or ACT score to exempt them in math. And then they only have to take one part of the TSI compliance test. So that's eliminating some of the testing for them. The slide you guys see right now, it does show the required scores for ACT, SAT star, and any students that have taken any college level courses or transfer students with your transfer courses coming in from other colleges. We've got those courses and required grades listed here. So please be sure to get test scores, official transcripts, get those sent in so we can evaluate them and hopefully save your student from having to take additional tests. We also had a QR code that was on the previous slide, and you guys will be able to see it again, but you can scan this QR code and this takes you to what we call our compliance quick check. This is going to walk you through step by step on if your student took a certain test, what the requirement is for that test. It's a really helpful tool just to kind of let you know where you are or where your students are and what tests they might need to take. So once again, please be sure to get those official scores sent in, get those official transcripts sent in. If your student hasn't already logged on to their admitted student task list, we definitely encourage you to log on to that task list. If TSI has been taken care of, you're going to see a nice little check mark next to it. If you don't see that check mark, then you definitely need to be looking into what TSI requirements are still outstanding or what test scores you can get sent in to help get that check mark on there. Right, so I think we are going to academic testing services with Pat McConnell next.
Hi, I'm Pat McConnell with Academic Testing Center. And this QR code will get you to a link where you can kind of follow along with some of the things that we're going to talk about on the next slides. One thing that creates some confusion when we're talking about testing is that there's a lot of different assessments that come into play for those students coming in. So the main thing when we're talking about TSI is we want you to remember that the TSI assessment is the only exam that's going to be approved by the state to meet compliance requirements for Texas Success Initiative. So therefore, if you do not have that check mark for TSI, the only exam that can be taken is our TSI assessment. And there are a lot of different rules and some different specifics. So we're only going to talk about just the general now, and we can help you with any specifics with your student at another time. If your student arrives at campus for RRO and they have not had their TSI assessment, there is going to be a delay for your advising in class registration. Therefore, we want to get that done early and as soon as possible. As Crystal said, they are the ones who will take care of compliance and notify students as to which sections they need to take. And we have the contact information and links here on this slide. Okay, There are several ways that you can go about getting your test taken. One thing I hope you will remember is that we're here to help you, and we love it when you reach out and contact our office. We can certainly avoid some barriers, some obstacles, and some confusion. The first thing that the student's going to need to do is take the TSI pre-assessment activity. That is part of state law, and it will talk about a lot of things that the state wants the student to know about, and that includes what is going to be on the exam as far as practice questions, those kind of things. But it will have other information that the student will need to be aware of, so we want the student to pay close attention to that pre-assessment activity. Once students are scheduled, students will receive an email with information regarding appointments and a link so that they can complete their TSI pre-assessment activity. When there actually comes down to taking the test, there is a non-refundable fee to academic testing, which will be paid through the online store, and we cannot accept cash. An email with the payment link will be sent to the student once the pre-assessment's completed. And please know that regardless of testing, we always are required to have appropriate photo ID. So please make sure your student has a passport, driver's license, or other government ID with a current photo. We do have students arrive on campus who do not have any ID, and that creates a problem for testing. There's two ways that you can take the TSI if you're not going to be here in Lubbock to take it on campus with us. The main thing is we need to use vouchers, which we need to prepare here. Some other places may tell you that you can walk in and take the TSI on their campus, and you certainly can do that. The problem is that we do have students get incorrect information when they do it that way, and we sometimes have some problems getting the scores. And at that point, when you're doing something at another institution and we're not aware of what's going on there, there's not a lot we can do to help you. So if you will contact us, we can prepare you a voucher so that the student can either take the exam as a remote session at your home through a third-party vendor called Examity. And there's other details that go into that, but they are outlined on our website and within some of these links that we've provided for you. The other is that you can do a remote session at another university or college, which we can help you select. There again, if we're selecting the remote site that is near you, then we know that those institutions take our voucher and that they will work with us to get your student ready so that you don't have any problems at RRO. And there's a little asterisk there about that. That's the benefit. We can help take care of that and make sure that we get our scores will be reported within 2 business days. If you take it somewhere else, even though the scores are immediate, we don't know what that other institution will do, and we don't always have success in looking it up on the state database because there are a lot of little idiosyncrasies in the system. So again, that's the benefit of using a voucher. Here's just a little bit of housekeeping type of things. Go to our testing website, use that QR code, go to the information about vouchers. If you have questions, reach out by email, give us a call. We're here to help you and we want to help you. Also, when the pre-assessment activity is completed, our office will send a payment link, create that voucher based on the student selection, and we will follow up with any other additional information you need. Also, again, beware if the student chooses to test at another site, it is the student's responsibility to get those scores to the TSI compliance office by sending a PDF file to registrar.tsi@ttu.edu. If you test through a voucher with us, we will make sure those scores get reported.
Hello, my name is Ashley Ross. I'm the Associate Director for College Readiness, and I'm going to talk about the last type of TSI hold a student might see when they're coming to orientation. And that is for students who have taken the TSI assessment, but based on their results from that assessment, they still haven't met their TSI requirements in either of the subject areas. In that case, students are then required to enroll in developmental coursework. And the purpose of this coursework is, again, just to help students strengthen those reading, writing, and math skills to make sure they're prepared to take college level coursework in those subject areas. In order to enroll in that developmental coursework, students will need to meet with the TSI advisor. TSI advising happens separately from academic advising. So students who do have a TSI advising hold will meet with the TSI advisor, and then at another point during orientation, meet with the advisor for their major. For the TSI advising process, it typically occurs during that first day of orientation. We try not to take up a lot of time during orientation for this process, so we kind of squeeze it in during different events for orientation, but there are two components to it. We do have a group session that students are required to go to where we outline the basic requirements of TSI, kind of reminder, what is TSI? Why are you here? What are the next steps? And then we also have one-on-one meetings with every student to go over their specific developmental course requirements. Students will have a TSI advising hold on their account until they meet one-on-one with the TSI advisor. So if a student turns in the TSI assessment, but then they're required to do TSI advising and they never meet with us during orientation, that hold will not get lifted. So just something else to be aware of. Sometimes taking the TSI assessment is not the last step. If there is the step for advising, that hold's going to stay on there until they meet with us so we can talk about their course requirements for TSI. And I think that wraps up everything that's TSI related.
You're muted, Amanda.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Amanda Garcia. I'm Associate Director for Student Health Services, and I oversee the immunization process. I'm going to share my screen with you so we can you can look at our website, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And so we are required by the Texas Senate bill that all students entering into the institution of higher education, either public and private, have to receive a vaccination against bacterial meningitis or meet certain criteria for declining such vaccine. Texas Tech University requires proof of vaccination prior to registering for classes for the first time. Extensions may be requested and will be evaluated on a case by case basis. In every instance, a student must provide their vaccination record prior to the state mandate deadline of 10 days prior to the first day of classes. We are contracted with a third-party vendor, which is called MedProctor. And I'm going to let you watch a video here that will it's just a quick video. It'll walk you through the steps that you will experience when logging into MedProctor, creating the account, uploading the records. So let me turn this on here.
Welcome to Texas Tech University. In this video, we will go over how to comply with immunization requirements. Texas law requires all students entering an institution of higher education, public and private, to either receive a vaccination against bacterial meningitis or meet certain criteria for declining such a vaccination before the first day of the semester. Like most universities, Texas Tech University requires proof of having received certain immunizations for all students who are enrolled. At Texas Tech University, all students are required to reach immunization compliance before they will be able to register for classes. Immunization compliance consists of submitting documentation of a bacterial meningitis vaccine that was received within the past 5 years of the first day of your entering semester. This applies to all new students under the age of 22. A student must provide their vaccination record prior to the state mandated deadline of 10 days prior to the first day of class. Any of the following documentation can be submitted as proof. Document bearing the signature or stamp of either a physician, the physician's designee, or the public health official that administered the vaccination that shows the month, day, and year it was administered. A copy of an official immunization record issued by a licensed health care provider with a state or local health authority. A copy of an official record received directly from a Texas school official or a school official in another state. Texas Tech University has partnered with MedProctor to handle the collection of immunization records for our students. Please visit www.medproctor.com to begin the process and click register for a new account. Use only your Texas Tech University email address when registering. Then click continue. From here, you will be redirected to Texas Tech University's single sign-on page. This may take around 5 seconds. Here you will log into your MedProctor account using your Texas Tech University username and password, or your university email address and password. If you do not know your school portal credentials, you can click Forgot Password or complete your profile information by filling out your name, date of birth, requirement group, entering term, or number, and if you will be a campus resident. Then click Continue. MedProctor will ask you to review the end user agreement. You will sign your name and click Agree to acknowledge the terms of use. Sign, click Continue. Before you can access the document section where you upload your records, you must choose between uploading with a MedProctor Pro account for $10 or uploading for free without the upgraded perks. If you want to upload for free, click the gray No Thank You button. Here is where you upload your vaccination record. Select a document type and then choose the file you wish to upload. You can only upload one file at a time. Select Continue once you have chosen your file. The Download Documents section is where you can download the optional immunization certificate. If you choose to use this form, a health professional must complete it. Once you upload files, you will be directed to the status page. This is where you can see updates regarding your immunization record review. Standard review time for uploaded documents is 1 to 3 business days. If you need something reviewed quicker, you can expedite the review of your forms for $15. Expedited forms are reviewed within an hour. If you need to upload another document, click here to submit another document, and you will be taken back to the document section. MedProctor sends notification of all communications to your Texas Tech University email address. You will access your messages through a secure portal by logging back into your MedProctor account. If you are missing something, MedProctor will communicate it by sending you a message like the one shown here. Messages like this that notify you to check your account status will be located under your Messages tab in your MedProctor account. To review your account status, go to your status page. Any issues or missing items will be listed here. It is important to submit required vaccine documentation and receive a verified as compliant message in your Messages tab or a verified to be complete message on your status page. You will not be able to remain registered for your classes without submitting the required be uploaded to MedProctor at least 4 weeks prior to the start of the semester to avoid student account. Students who are enrolled in an online-only degree program are not required to meet immunization compliance. In this case, you would not need to upload anything to MedProctor. More information regarding medical exemptions, religious exemptions, or reasons of conscience exemptions can be found on Texas Tech University's website, listed here. Contact MedProctor directly for any assistance you may need, including a live chat feature to aid in completing this process. In summary, register at MedProctor with your Texas Tech email address. Complete your profile in MedProctor. Upload documentation back through MedProctor. And watch your school email in your MedProctor status page for verification or to take the necessary steps to reach verified status. Welcome to Texas Tech University. We are happy to have you here.
Okay, so that was just a little preview of the MedProctor process and how you'll go about submitting your records. I do just want to add that all of our staff here at Student Health has admin access to MedProctor, so we can troubleshoot and verify your records real time. So please just don't hesitate to give us a call. And then just a reminder, I can't underscore this anymore. There's that option to, when you scroll down to not pay to expedite, be sure that you're clicking that option. This is at no cost. You just have to pay attention when you're registering. that you're clicking that option. There's information below on our website that tells you when the student's entering and the date the records, the meningitis vaccine must be given on or after the date. And so please be sure you're just verifying that your records are within that time frame. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us. There's also a list of types of meningitis vaccines that are approved. And so be sure you take a look at that list as well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to holler at us. Thank you.
All right, and as we finish up, as I mentioned earlier, please make sure that your student, if they need to sign up for housing, to go ahead and do that as soon as possible. The halls are filling up, so the quicker they get in there, the better their options are for housing. So you can scan that QR code to go to the housing website. You can go to their website right there, www.housing.ttu.edu. To get that taken care of. And just as a reminder, the more that you can take care of prior to your Red Raider orientation, your student's Red Raider orientation, the better off you're going to be, the better off your student is going to be. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any of the questions. We are more than willing to help out. But again, housing, TSI, immunizations, the more we can take care of before orientation, the better off we'll be. So I'm going to hand it off to Christine.
All right, thanks everyone for your presentations. And speaking of questions, now is an excellent time to put those questions in the box using our Q&A feature here with Zoom. So any questions you have, we will be able to answer them. We only have a few minutes left of our live presentation. If you got on a little bit early, you heard that we have to cut it off at around 30 minutes to respect everyone's time, but we can stay behind the scenes and continue to type answers to your questions. So one question that I've been seeing pop up quite a bit here as I've been watching the Q&A, this is probably a question for Zach to answer, especially folks that may have popped on just a little bit later. How exactly do the students find out where their holds are? So how do we find out what they are?
Yeah, so there's a few different places to go. One place they can do it is when they register for orientation, and they can log in there at any time. And it's just through www.orientation.ttu.edu. Whenever they click on the register button, and again, they could have registered months ago, they could have registered yesterday. When they get in there on the left-hand side, there's a menu and it says questionnaire. And at the top of the questionnaire, they will see their different holds. So you can see the link is there in the chat down there at the bottom. Feel free to visit that and reach out there. Also through RaiderLink, they'll be able to see which holds they have in RaiderLink. But definitely recommend them going through the orientation site. Also, the admitted student task list is a good way to find that out. I know a question came up about their TSI. It still wasn't checked off as being green. Well, then we need to make sure we get those scores in. So please utilize that. Please reach out to our office and we can help out with that if any questions come up. But again, the more you can take care of before orientation, the better off your student will be.
Another question that I'm seeing has to do with those TSI exemptions. And again, that idea of test optional and how to submit test scores if needed to prove an exemption. Crystal, would you be able to speak to that just a little bit?
Yes, of course. So if your student wants to submit their SAT scores, they just need to log into their College Board account and have their scores sent to Texas Tech from College Board. If it's an ACT test score, go ahead and log into your ACT profile and have your scores sent officially from ACT. Now, TSI assessment scores, this is a little different and it's going to have several different options. If your student took the TSI assessment test at their high school or at a local community or junior college, if you guys have a physical hard copy of your test scores, please scan them and email them. I'll give you the email address in just a minute, but please scan them and email them to us. If you don't have a copy of your test scores, we have a pretty simple way to get a hold of them. The good thing about TSI assessment scores is they're stored in a College Board database. So our staff at Academic Testing Services, they have access to go into that database and retrieve them on your student's behalf. So the process for retrieving test scores, because we do have to have consent from your student to access their academic records, is they would need to send an email from their Texas Tech email address, because that's verified via e-rater and password. Send an email from their Texas Tech email address to testing@ttu.edu, including their full name, date of birth, and maybe just a little information about where they tested to help Academic Testing Services locate those scores. If you need to email a PDF document to the TSI Compliance Office, our email is registrar, registrar.tsi@ttu.edu. Some high schools do put test scores on their transcripts. Just keep in mind that sometimes those digital high school transcripts don't always give us the information we need. So verify with your high school if they are included on high school transcripts, and ask them to maybe send a hard copy, or you guys can just send a copy yourself.
And Crystal, here's another one that really applies, I think, to your area most. Asking about dual credit. Does that count toward TSI?
Yes, so dual credit, this is a great question that comes up quite a bit. Dual credit, if your student took any English course, any history, political science, or math course, they could be either completely or partially compliant for TSI. So specifically, in order to satisfy the reading, writing portions of TSI, if your student took English 1301 and made a C or better, that's going to satisfy that whole literacy or reading, writing section of TSI. And if they took any math course, they will be compliant in the math area of TSI. So one thing to keep in mind with dual credit is we do have to have the college transcript. We do not take dual credit courses off of high school transcripts. So be sure to get with the college that your high school partnered up with and have your official college transcript sent in. We do have the courses that satisfy each individual area listed on our website, but most of the time students are taking English 1301 and math, and that's going to satisfy them completely for TSI with the C or better.
Thank you. And here's a question for Amanda. This parent is asking, can a parent take care of the MedProctor upload of vaccination information?
They can. They will have to have their students' e-rater to log in, which requires their e-rater username and password. So I would think it'd probably be best if the student takes care of that. But if they have access to that information, they can do that.
That's a good reminder. E-rater and password should really only be utilized by the student. So it's probably best to have your student do it, but you can be there right there with them while they're taking care of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question that I'm seeing, I want to make sure we answer is, when will the video be available? When will this information be available? I will be sharing out a link to the video from today's presentation, including all of the links that were shared. So I know someone was asking specifically about the link to the video, about how to submit vaccinations. I will share all of that with you a little bit later today. And then I think we have time for one more question. We're a little bit over time, but there was something I saw about, oh, where did it go? Someone may have already typed an answer to it. I'm seeing a lot of questions about, again, final transcripts and things. And so when do you have to have those in and how are those submitted? That might be another question for Crystal, perhaps.
Or I can answer that one real quickly.
Okay, good.
So that final high school transcript is not required until October. So you have plenty of time. I know, I think Melissa mentioned that your student is graduating the week of or the week prior, and that's going to be impossible to get in prior to their Red Raider orientation. So that hold doesn't impact your students until they try to register for spring classes. So don't worry about that. Come to orientation, and then once they get a chance to, once things have calmed down, request that that transcript be sent in so it doesn't impact their ability to register for classes for the spring. And so, yeah, the final high school transcript, once you get that done, I'd recommend by the end of the summer, just so you don't forget.
Wonderful, thank you. On your screen right now, you see all of the contact information of all of the departments who spoke today. I will be sending this out to you later this afternoon. You are welcome to keep your questions coming and using the Q&A feature. I am going to stop the recording here in just a moment, and we will shut down our video. I want to thank all of our presenters today. If you came on a little bit late, again, don't worry. I'll be sending out the link to the video and all of the contact information that was shared. And we're doing this again tomorrow at noon if you'd like to join live and have the opportunity to type in a question. So we'll stay on in just a little bit and answer your questions. And thank you once again for spending some time with us this afternoon. We are excited to provide information to you that's going to help your students transition to Texas Tech and the experience at Red Raider orientation stronger this summer. So thank you all, and keep those questions coming.